Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It has come to my knowledge that there was something crucial missing in the first video. One of my viewers slash subscribers, aka my dad, has told me that it'll be a good idea to actually show what you do and what you use before starting a painting. So today I'm just gonna show you how to prepare a cheap canvas, what's my go-to colour scheme slash colour palette, and also just talk about the mediums I use on an everyday basis. I hope you like the video. Please subscribe if you like this face already, and let's get on to it. First, I'm going to be talking about how to prep a cheap canvas. While Corona was happening, I realised I did not have any canvases left, and the only ones available were the cheap canvases at the kids section. I took the chance and bought these canvases, but it's not the quality I'm looking for. So I'm just going to show you what I do to prepare them to make them as good as possible. This is what you see behind me is the canvas I'm going to be using in my next portrait. First of all, I use some PVA glue. It's just a standard run-of-the-mill PVA glue. You can buy them in Amazon, you can buy them in your local store, although now it might be a little bit hard to get it due to what we're experiencing currently. If you want to know what brand I use currently, is Unibond, and I just grabbed it off Amazon. So first of all, you're going to just put the glue in a jar and put a tiny bit of water inside the jar, mix it up a little bit and paint the back of your canvas. Once the glue is dry, it shrinks and it helps tighten and make the canvas a bit more taut, as a cheaper quality canvas tend to be a bit more flimsy. Whilst the glue is drying, you can now proceed with the gesso. Cheap canvases do come pre-primed, but it's usually a thin layer of cheap, plasticky, slippery gesso, I guess. Like, you can touch it and it's just a bit plasticky and the paints don't adhere properly. So that's where this bad boy comes into play. The gesso kind of mattifies everything and gives a tooth. If you use good quality gesso, that's it. And good quality gesso does not mean expensive. I find mid-range gessos or even wall primer just fine. What you do with the gesso is apply a couple of layers on your canvas and it should be fine. Adding an extra layer of gesso just brings up the quality of the canvas and helps adhere your paints and make them look a little bit better. Now we're going to move on to paints. While that is drying, I usually choose a colour scheme. Now I'm going to be showing you the colour scheme I had in my last video in case you were interested. I like to go for the primary colours, a blue, a yellow and a red. So let's start with the blue. Ultramarine blue. It's a classic. I've always used it since I was little and it's never ever gone away from my palette. One of the colours I probably use in every single palette. It's a standard colour, ultramarine blue, I guess. Also, fun fact, ultramarine blue was actually a really expensive pigment and royals really favoured them in their paintings as it gave a very luscious, deep, rich colour, and of course is an expensive pigment. It was really difficult and rare to mine it then, but now we can have synthetic variations to have our cheap, iconic blue colour. And yellow, here I have the Yellow Lake Deep. And by the way, this is from Michael Harding, as the blue was as well. Yellow Lake Deep is it's like a cadmium yellow, but a little bit more orange and a little bit more warm. I really like this colour as I love having my paintings to feel a bit more warm in tone, and this certainly helps with that. Lastly, with my primary colours is the red. I always pick a magenta for my colours. Magenta is my favourite colour ever existed in this life, especially this magenta by Michael Harding. It's beautiful, it's a rich pink shade like all magentas are. It's a great colour to use in your palette. You can basically make any colour using this red and a variation of other blues and yellows. Another thing about magenta is that magenta is not in the visible light spectrum. We technically can't see magenta. This is just our brain imagining the colour, because magenta is an in-between of red and blue, which, if you think about it, the visible light spectrum goes from red all the way to indigo. Now, it's not a loop, it's a linear spectrum, so they can't be an in-between. This is just what our brain thinks that's in between blue and red. How crazy, right? As it technically does not exist in nature, It's a good colour to start with, as you can't mix it, but it's great to mix other things with. Then I choose my whites, which tend to be the same all the time. I use these two guys. First of all, let's start with the big bottle of white, which is Zinc white. This is a 250 ml, which is a lot of paint, but I use this so much. This is my go-to color that I use for mixing my paint. My second white is titanium white. Now, titanium white is a color that, is a shade. It's like white. It's a color that most people know, especially due to Bob Ross making it popular, obviously. I feel that titanium white is actually make your colors a lot duller, and I want my paintings to be vibrant. Even if it's a lighter color or a darker color, I still want them to have that vibrancy and luminosity, and this just makes it duller. Now, Zinc white does not make my paints duller. Obviously, adding white to anything is going to make it lighter and a bit more desaturated. This does less of a job of that than this. This just lightens the color and it still has that vibrance within the color that I want to show in my paintings. Titanium white I usually just use for highlights and extra details at the end, and not use as a mixing shade, just as its standalone color. Now, I feel I always have a brown shade that I use under my paintings, and my favorite one to use is Burnt Umber. Burnt Umber is just a neutral brown color that you can add any color to it to make a dark, cool, rich color, or you can make a dark, warm, rich color. Obviously, I want my paintings to look a bit more warm, so I tend to mix this with a magenta or a yellow. But a good tip that I have, a burnt umber with an ultramarine blue makes a fantastic black, a black that can contrast your full paintings. I'm really inspired by Rembrandt and I love the dark backgrounds, although I do want the colours and the actual figure in the foreground to pop. So a mixture of burnt umber and ultramarine blue really helps to contrast, make it great. I also want to show these two shades. I've only used this one in my last painting, but I want to use this one in my next one, and I'm going to tell you why I love both of these. Both paints are from Old Holland, and Old Holland's a newer brand to me, but it's still very promising and I still really like their brand. I'm going to first start with Flesh Tint. Flesh Tint is supposed to be a skin tone, a skin tint, and for me, this is a really nice flushy cheek colour for light and fair skin tones, and also a really nice mixing shade to make medium skin tones. It is a blend of pigments, and usually I like to go for single pigment paints. I don't mind using a mix of pigments if it's going to aid me in a skin tone, especially if I want to keep consistent. Once you mix a paint, it's really annoying when you mix a certain shade that is perfect for your whole painting and then you run out and you can't make it again. So this just helps me be more consistent. I'm really excited with this. I've only used this once and I want to continue using it again. This is Flesh Ochre by also Old Holland, and this is the dark version or the dark skin version of the Flesh Tint. Again, this makes a really nice rosy colour to bring life and vibrance to dark skin tones. When using a commonly used colour for skin tones is yellow ochre, and I feel that yellow ochre can make a dark skin tone, especially a red or neutral tone dark skin tone, really sickly greenish looking, and it does not look right. But when I add this, it just makes it more vibrant, more lively. That's what I'm going for in my paintings. Yes, another mix of pigments. It's not a single pigment, but I don't mind because it just makes my life easier, really. Finally, I'm just going to show you mediums I currently use all the time, which is only 3. First, I'm going to start with the obvious jar of turpentine. Now, I don't use turpentine, I use mineral spirit. Yes, an odorless mineral spirit. The bonus of this is that it's odorless, and if it gets in my hands, it does not irritate as much as turpentine. Although I do recommend it, keeping it in the jar, just so the fumes don't come out into your room and having lying around, and you can't even smell it, so it can cause health problems in the future that you might not notice. The jar I use is a Silicoil This jar was quite pricey. It cost me £30, but that's because I had to ship it from United States. If you do live there, I believe that is probably about $20, which is £15, about half the price. If you are in Europe, you can get it on Amazon, but at a premium price. I think it's worth it. It's got a coil inside, which is easy to wash your brushes. And another bonus thing is that the paint actually solidifies and goes to the bottom of the jar, which means you have clean turpentine for the next day or the next time you're going to be using this to clean your brushes. And although the water does look a little bit dirty now, it's not full of paint, it's just a tint from having the paints inside there for a long time. I can still use the brush, and when you dry it, you will see there's no paint on it and it won't affect your paintings. Another basic medium that I use is linseed oil. The linseed oil I use is very basic, from Didan or Titan, however you want to pronounce it. It's a Spanish fine art supply brand. You don't have to go crazy. This has cost me €4. It's a cheap and cheerful bottle of linseed oil, and that's all you need. You don't need any expensive brands for this because it's very straightforward. What I do is have a little jar, put it inside the jar, and this can last me a couple of paintings. More than that, this is a lot of oil, and this can last me a really long time. Again, this is something I buy once a year, maybe twice in a year, but I barely use any of this. A great use of linseed oil is actually if it's been a couple of days since you've used your palette or you left it out a bit too long and you want to continue using your paints, take a little bit of linseed oil and mix the colours. Just let it sit for a few minutes, then mix the colours in, and then you've got refreshing oil paints and you don't have to throw them away. And I'll make another video all about mediums once I gather them and I test some of them out, so I can show you guys what mediums might be right for the method of painting you want to do. The last medium that I use is Liquin Original, another cult classic. I don't know an artist who doesn't have a bottle of these in their drawer. Doesn't mean they use it, but they certainly have them in their studios. I have a 250ml bottle. Again, I buy bigger bottles because I know I'm going to use them up and it saves me money. But if you're just trying it out to see if you like it, I recommend getting the 50ml, which is about half price from the bigger bottle. This has cost me about £10 or even less, £7 to £8, and you can probably get it for £4 or £5 on Amazon or in your local art shop. Liquin is a great medium if you don't want to wait a long time for your paints to dry. For example, oil paint on its own, or even with linseed oil, can take weeks to dry properly, probably depending on how much layers to put. Whereas if you use Liquin, it can take actually either hours or days, depending again how many layers. Usually when I use Liquin, my paintings dry overnight. It also increases glossiness in your paintings, which just elevate your colours and make them better. That is all for today. This is just the products I tend to use on a usual basis. My colour palettes do change depending on how much I want to experiment with colour. I love paints. It's literally an underestimate. I'm underestimating how much I love colour and mediums, and oil painting in general is something I really enjoy and it's really interesting. So I will make more videos about different types of colours, different pigments, mediums, and all that shiz. Thank you so much for watching today's video. This is all the products that I've used in the last video to create my speed painting, and this is something I do use usually. I hope you liked the tip on how to refreshen a cheap or old canvas. Give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and comment below what is your go-to colour scheme. What are your favourite few colours that you always use on a daily basis? Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day. See you later. If you guys can actually see what I'm wearing for my trousers, you're actually gonna you're probably gonna laugh. You like my joggers? And I'm also wearing my slippers, you know. I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.